So I'll try to answer these questions, and if I don't answer them, just say you're not getting it. I'm happy. So the first question was about credibility. Well, a couple of things that we did. The first of which is I'm a very pushy person. And that, I think that really helps when you start up an organisation. When we first started, we started off as an article. New Deal of the Mind was an article written by a guy named Martin Bryant, who used to be the political editor of the New Statesman, right? And he wrote this article, and that's all we were, was just an article. And when I joined, we just had a desk and a phone and a chair. That was it, right? So I think there are a couple of things that I did. First of which was the board, our board of trustees. Very lucky that we've kind of got the great and the good there, and that adds legitimacy. So we have Jude Kelly, who's been very helpful, creative director of the South Bank Centre. We have Mike Smith, who is the managing director of Columbia Records. We have Pippa Harris. We have like a stellar board, right? So that helps. It doesn't help as much as you think it would, but it does. It does. I think the second thing is, the most difficult thing is just to get that first bit of money, right? And once you've got that first bit of money, it just adds legitimacy to what you do. We got an initial bit of money from the Arts Council, but it was tiny, right? But at least we could put their little logo onto our. It's not on there anymore, but it was on there when they gave us a little bit of money. And so that people like go, okay, so they've passed that test. And then second of all, the programs that I spoke about, putting these kids into arts organisations, was funded by a scheme that doesn't exist anymore called the Future Jobs Fund, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about here. Very annoyed about it not being continued, but anyway. And when I wrote all the Arts Council had initially asked us to apply on behalf of their RFOs, regularly funded organisations, because you just needed a certain number of people, so we put everyone together. And Future Jobs Fund initially, it was really aimed towards local authorities, and we didn't get any money, right? And the government officers, one of the questions that was in the grant was like, what is the community benefit? And I had these ridiculous civil servants saying to me, what's the community benefit of someone making costumes? And what is the benefit? Like silly, do you know what I mean? Anyway, so I fought and got all the way to Jim Knight.
Who's Jim Knight?
Jim Knight used to be the minister for the DWP of the last government, right? And I fought and I fought and I fought, and every civil servant now at the DWP knows who I am. But all I'm saying is that you've got to fight like crazy. And I know that's easier said than done, but people are going to think you're like, people still think I'm crazy. I don't care. We've got the funding, and now people are starting to come to us, which is like such a nice change. Because before I'm like begging down. But I think it's just, you've just got to be a pain in the neck, if that makes sense. And just don't listen to them saying, oh, I'm crazy. You probably are crazy. But, if that helps you to get what you need, who cares? So that's, I don't know if that's any help. Yeah. Who does the training? That was the next question. We've partnered up with an organisation called Goals. I don't know if you know them, they're called Goals UK. And Goals, what they do is, we make all of our kids go through this, what we call employment support. And Goals, basically, they're really good at working with needs, young offenders, kids that have been in gangs and the rest. Because there's so many issues that you wouldn't even think happen, right? So, for example, you get your salary, other kids will spend all the money all in one go, and then they don't have enough money to pay for their travel card to get into work. And they don't want to talk about that with their boss, because they just, So we make sure that we've got an advisor. So we put them through an initial course for about a week, and then we have support all the way through the program to make sure that they get that support. We also, what I would call would be we do a lot of expectation management. So one of our partners is BAFTA, the people, who BAFTA is. And so a lot of the kids work at production companies, and the kids think, I'm not exaggerating, they think that they're going to get the job as a film director. Right? And it's not their fault. It's because they don't come from a background where anyone works. If you're at home and no one works, you think, okay, I'm going to get, that's how. And so it's managing their expectations, saying, okay, well, no, you're not going to be a film director. but let's just think how you can take advantage of this opportunity and get to your ultimate goal. Like, let's just think of the steps that you need to take to get there. So that support is key, I think. One of the reasons why we've had so much success, because we deal with those issues that aren't just about on-the-job issues, the issues at home. Like, we have kids with drug issues, kids that have become homeless, and then you just need that support. So I don't know, does that answer?
Well, yeah. It seems to me that you have to have partners either in education or charities like this to provide these young people with meaningful experiences.
Yeah, you need to, otherwise it will just fail, you know. And
ongoing, sustainable.
It needs to go all the way through. It's really, really important. And I think that's why we've been so successful. I really do, because it's we've placed around 1,000. We've placed around 1,000 kids in the arts sector, which is I'm very proud of. And we've only had, I'd say, a handful of kids drop out, which is remarkable, you know, especially when you talk about this cohort. And then I suppose private funding.
Private funding, yes.
It's the village.
Do you think very rich businessmen going to sleep in the opera gives it a bad image? I suppose it doesn't. But you know, there's always been an association between
to the microphone.
Wealth and the consumption of art. So yes, I mean, it probably does. But you know, a lot of private funding does great good as well. Actually, we wouldn't have much in the way of if you think about museum provision in this country, private philanthropy has been enormously helpful, and people like the Sainsbury family and the Western family and so on have given very, very generously and without imposing on the whole their personal desires on the organisations that they fund. The Ashmolean would be a good case in point. The new Ashmolean would never have happened without private philanthropy.
I think there were a couple more. One was about the Museum of London. I don't know if I fully understand what the question was. Was it about how do you attract young people?
No, I've just had my first experience of putting on a sort of exhibition, and it sort of gets the bug going. And but no, I think you partly answered this thing with the good and the great. I mean, so you described your board as being people that can pull strings, but you obviously, you know, may not want to go for royalty, or you know, it may put off or sort of someone else.
I think there's a mistake that we've made, and I'm trying to fix it right now. Actually, I just got some funding for it. First application that came back with a big envelope. Usually it's really thin. Sorry, but one of the things that I think the mistake that we've made is that we basically have the great and the good on our board. People that have been very, very successful at what they've done, and they kind of feel they feel that they've got a very good understanding of what young adults want. And a lot of the times they really don't, because the situation's changed. And I think that we haven't done a very good job at empowering the young adults to steer our activities. So that's the next phase of how I'm trying to change the organisation at the moment, is I'm trying to get they call them customers at the DWP, getting our customers more involved with how we can shape our activities to benefit our end users. Because it's great to have, you know, that we've got Sir John Toosas, all those people on our board, but they don't really know what it's like living in a council estate, you know, when no one works, and you know, you're being targeted. Like, I've got this story, someone, you know, the brother was a drug dealer and he hadn't paid his debts and he was in jail, and then she was being targeted. Like, no one on my board has any idea of what that is, you know. So that's our next round, is trying to empower our customers to steer our activity. Yeah.
Are you saying that you're trying to get people whose brothers are drug dealers to steer the sort of the sort of shows you put on at the museums in England? Or?
Well, I don't do shows. We don't. So, for example, I'm very hands-off. So all we do is I'll say to an organisation, you know, what's changing now, because, you know, the single work program's coming in, but, you know, I would say, look, I have so many placements, they're yours. You do with them what you want, you know, tell me, you know, so I don't.
I mean, I think what we're all, I'm sure a lot of people here would agree that we wanted it to be a sort of the arts to be aspirational. We don't want necessarily to only reflect something that's going to mean something who is living, to somebody who is living in a...
Can I just push back on that?
Yes, please.
This is something that I talk about quite a bit, and V&A obviously is different, and that's fabulous, but I do know that there are a lot of organisations out there that are very white and very middle class. And an analogy that I will draw, and I'm not sporty at all, and I'm Australian, is that, strange, which is, if you went to, what do they call them, football managers or football coaches, I don't know. If you went to a football coach and you said to the football coach, look, are you allowed to hire white middle-class public school kids to play on your team? They'd be even worse than they are at the moment in football England, I'm sorry, right? I think that as a culture, right, we are missing out by not listening to other voices and people from different backgrounds. Just like if you marginalised the type of people you recruited for sport. Right? So I don't agree with the fact that it needs to be aspirational and it needs to be...
I don't mind it being inclusive, I'm just sort of saying that does it only... It seems to almost be like it's what positive discrimination in the other way, in the other direction. Like
well, I was saying that it goes both ways, right? If these kids, a lot of people are bending over backwards for these kids, right? If they don't show up to work on time, and they don't pull their weight, they're out.
But this is the point I was making about you seem to marginalise. So to have the arts sector with the fluffy, cuddly daughters that you're talking about, and then the drug dealers, and we pushed out those people who might not have come from a traditional fluffy, cuddly daughter side, but haven't gone to the extreme of becoming a drug dealer.
Look,
they're now having to leave the country.
Look, I agree. I agree with you.
I think that it ill behoves me to end the debate. I think actually it gets back to what Mark was saying about reputations, which is that the reputations of our institutions will be partly dependent on the experience, and that experience will be dependent on the intelligence of the engagement, what's going on in the world. So you're always trying to sort of circle. And I absolutely think that actually British museums are probably, their reputational value is rather high, is less fragile than universities. That's what I think. I think that universities are exactly in that very dangerous point. I completely, I sort of understand your experience, and I think there is something very, and I think universities have failed to rethink the things that they do for their foreign students, whereas I think actually Mark and the V&A has rethought what we want to do in an intelligent way for different audiences.
Well, I think so, but can I just respond to what I may have misunderstood? I think there is a sense, and certainly I often read in the newspapers, this kind of sense that unfair advantage is being given to people from, quotes, non-traditional backgrounds, and that people who are less qualified are getting jobs over people who are more qualified and so on. And of course, you know, Oxford and Cambridge and other elite universities are very much in this area with, you know, quite a lot of controversy about whether it's the students with the best exam qualifications that should be admitted, or whether some allowance should be made for the different educational standards of different schools. So these are sort of quite similar questions. And I only have one thing to say on that, which is, overall and by and large, the performance of the V&A members of staff who come from, quote, non-traditional backgrounds is significantly better than average.